Hey everybody, welcome back to Travis RC. If you caught the last video, you saw that we completed the rear end of the Tekno EB48 2.2, and in this video we're going to go ahead and get the front end completed. Alright, so first things first here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our sway bar installed on the front. Our sway bar here is a 2.3 millimeter sway bar, and it was a 2.5 millimeter sway bar in the rear. So we're going to go ahead and stick that through our gearbox here, followed by the 2.7 millimeter bushings, and push those into their homes. Alright, now comes the part of making sure you try to center up the sway bar here as best as you can. And it worked out pretty good in the rear end, luckily. So we find our pieces here that lock everything in place. Slide them onto each end and kind of have the notch and the set screw facing you when you do this. It'll be a little bit easier. And then I believe this is a 1.5 millimeter set screw that we're using on this. And we do not use thread lock because we are not going through metal here. And it's a pretty small set screw, so I'm not using my electric driver. And again, it looks like we're not expecting that to tighten or stop as we are securing it. And now we just move over to the other side here. Alright, the sway bar is on there and secure. Now we are going to go ahead and get the sway bar links on, and that will start, of course, with getting the balls inserted into the ends. And just like before here, we are going to get the link on the sway bar here and position this in a way that will allow us to easily thread lock the link onto our set, put us in a position to easily thread lock and secure the set screw that holds the link onto the sway bar. Alright, onto the other side. Of course, it helps if you don't drop your set screw. Okay, sway bar installed. Now we need the B block, which is going to be this guy right here, and we need to pull out our parts tree here of block pills that we got in a bag earlier. So it looks like we need to pull from that again, and we are going to be using the same pills in the B block and the A block again, which are the single dots directly in the middle of the pill. So we'll push those right into the B block. And how we know A block versus B block? This is going to be the front of the car because there's no outdrive and the shock standoffs are facing towards the front. The A block, B block, C block, and D block go in that order. Front of the car is A, directly behind it is B, and here is the rear, but on the inside of the car, C, and on the very back of the car, D. So A, B, C, and D. So this has us go ahead and put our B block on first, which is done with a couple screws, and we make sure we set our droop screws aside, which I'm going to do right here, which we learned about earlier. And of course we will take our 2.5 millimeter and hand tighten that the rest of the way down. And now the arms. So we will start with the arms here and put in our droop screw. Now we want to be mindful of which arms go on which side and their orientation. So that's going to be just like this. Our shock mounts, we want to be towards the front of the car. So with that, we will go ahead and put our hinge pin bushings into the arms. Wow, those slide in a lot easier than what they did in the rear. Now we'll go ahead and put one of the hinge pins into a pill, and then we will go ahead and slide the arm onto the hinge pin. I hope. Yep, there we go. Alright, that's one. Hinge pin bushings. 1, 2. Get our hinge pin. Alright, and we have our arms on. And now we simply need to get our A block on. And our A block are using the same single marks directly in the middle of the pills as we've done on all the other blocks. Pill 1, pill 2, and of course we are going to slide the A block over those hinge pins. And then the only difference really between the front and the rear is that we are putting a bumper on, and it is going through the block and into the gearbox. Alright, so there we got our suspension arm, the sway bar, our A and B blocks, and our front bumper. So now we just have to secure our sway bars into the arms, and it's the same as before. We use these long cap head screws. Right, we have our suspension arms, everything moves freely, sway bars are doing their job. Got our front bumper, got our A and B blocks on there. Everything in the differential still spinning nicely, so we're sitting pretty so far still. Alright, we have our front end here. So far, we've got arms, we've got sway bar, shock tower, shock standoff, and we have A and B blocks, and we have our front bumper. Now, it's time to move on to some more fun stuff, and that is going to be with bag H. Alright, so first things first, just like before, I'm going to grab one of these hubs and figure out what's the front, what's the back. So I'm going to grab one of the bearings that has the flange, and that's going to go into the outside of the hub, and one of the standard bearings is going to go here on the inside of the hub. Next we will grab our drive shaft here, alright, so just like before, we are going to slide the hex on. We have a pin that has a flat spot in it for our set screw. We need to make sure that is facing out. And I should be able to look down and see that flat spot, I believe. Alright, I'm not sure how much you caught of that, but now I am putting the set screws in for these pins that hold the spindle carrier onto the hub. Alright, so now we have a left and we have a right. And now, these can get installed onto the front clip. So this is going to go on a bit differently than how these drive shaft, the carrier assemblies and all that went onto the rear. So it looks like we have hinge pin sleeves that go in on the inside of the arms. And then we will go ahead and take the assembly here, line it up, make sure our dog bone is in where it needs to be into the out drive here, and then we have some metal pieces that are going to go in here and be secured with set screws. There is a marker on this metal pin here, a flat spot, that indicates where the flat spot in the pin is located, which is nice. And these are going to secure with one of these button head screws again, and then same thing on the front. Now we do the same thing on the other side. So we will get these sleeves into the inside of the arms and the pins to secure these bad boys. Alright, then one more pin to go. Alright, that's all good, and now we're just going to make sure everything moves as it should. Check and make sure everything's spinning. Drive shafts are moving together, the diff is doing its job. Make sure our steering is all good, nothing's binding. Of course, check our arms, which is a little bit difficult to do without the top links, because those drive shafts are going to fall out of the out drives. But just make sure everything goes up nice and down, everything feels good, and it does. That is all good to go. The only thing left on our front end assembly is our front camber links. Alright, now we work on the front camber links, and the camber links are by far and away easily my least favorite part. So we will get the balls onto the rod ends. Alright, and just like the fronts, all this is the same with the exception of It's 37 3/4 millimeters from the inside of one rod end to the other. So take a little bit of black grease to put on our threads. I'm realizing I might have screwed something up earlier. So this is my least favorite part because you got to push these in really hard to get them to thread correctly. And when you think it's on straight, it probably is not. And this one seems to be going on okay. See if we can get roughly the same amount of threads to show, give or take. And then we will start measuring and adjusting. Alright, we have our front camber links, and now it is time to install them. And then we will have a complete rear end and a front end. And then things will start coming together and really starting to look like a completed car. Okay, so for this, we're going to start on the right side here. And we're going to double check that there's no binding. Alright, and on the shock tower, it looks like we're going in on the bottom hole. So we'll put our screw in through there. And then it looks like it wants a washer, the camber link, and then a lock nut. So screw, washer, camber link, and nut. Alright, that is one side good to go. And now the same thing over here. Alright, so we'll pick this up, make sure everything moves freely. It does. Sway bars are doing their job. Camber links all move nice. Alright, and just like that, we have a completed front end and a completed rear end. Next step are going to be components that start detaching to the chassis, and then we will put these clips on, and things are going to start looking like an actual car.